Eric Lalonde. I have a layout at home. It's 500 square feet, 3 levels. Some of you have seen it. Some of you have seen it online. And here I am going to show you how to do more clouds. Like we haven't seen enough cloud videos, right? So there's all kinds of ways to do clouds. People use aerosol cans. They use templates to spray their clouds. You can use an airbrush. You can use all kinds of different techniques out there for clouds. Whatever works best for you is what works best for you. I found a way that works best for me, and I try to share it with everybody because I think it's a really kind of unique, easy way. You don't have to be a Bob Ross to do what I do. This is my West Chicago yard. And again, I had a YouTube presentation that I wanted to share with everybody that was about 20 minutes long, but unfortunately we didn't have sound. So I'm going to just live narrate this. So this is a shot of that YouTube video. If any of you have seen that online, this is the cloud background that I had done back there. And the biggest thing that you want to take away from this is the white clouds that I do is strictly just white paint. So when you look at clouds out in the sky, like today is a perfect example of how I paint my clouds. You got the blue background, you got a little bit of shading of white along the atmosphere, along the close to the earth there, and then it fools you to look at these clouds and almost see that there's gray in them, but there's zero gray in those clouds. This is kind of a low resolution, the way this is being brought up here, but on a high resolution, like 1080p, they really look pretty decent. So that's what I'm going to show you how I do today. Can we go to a couple more slides? So here's another example, and then if I do have enough time, and these should dry pretty quick because I use acrylic paint, I want to show you how I do these background trees before you put your foreground trees in, which really helps to add the depth. Because this section of layout right here is only about maybe 2 feet, 16 inches to 2 feet long, deep. And then when you do these clouds, and the way I do this, it really helps the eye draw, and you can see the clouds coming through the trees. So the paint, I guess, that I use is how this all started is I was looking up at the blue sky, and we always try to match that hue of the sky. And so after multiple Cermacoat tests, this was the original color, which I bought a case of until I knew I could duplicate it into a quart of Cermacoat paint, which is called Blue Jay. And it's a really close, similar color to the sky once you look at it through a digital image. So then what I did is I got it duplicated into gallons and quarts and things like that. And if anybody wants to code, it's right here on the can. Take a picture of it, take it home with you. But that's the color of my sky on my layout. Everything needs a base though, right? So when you do a model railroad, you always try to use a hardboard. I think most of us use hardboard for the base, which is pretty much what this is, MDF board. So once you get this onto your layout, you need to paint it. And you got to figure out what you want to do, how to paint it, what color you want to use. So the first step in that process was getting 2 coats of this. I use this Kills all-purpose primer. So 2 coats of this. 1 coat, kind of half, really, half of buries this. Second coat, let that dry. First coat dry, second coat dry, and you'll have a nice white base, which I didn't have that presentation today, but once that's dry, you put 1 to 2 coats of this on. 1 coat's pretty satisfactory because it's a white base. So once you put this on, if you're happy with 1 coat, great. If not, put another coat on it, right? And then you'll end up with what looks like this for your blue.
So I should have rolled it.
This is rolled. Yeah, with a fine roller, just something that's not going to leave all those little fine fibers behind, because we definitely want that in the sky. So this is 2 coats of primer and 1 coat of the blue. And so that gives you a good base. I recommend doing this, of course, in the early stages of a railroad, but if you already got your blue sky up and you want to try some clouds, it's pretty simple. So once you get this base down, there's only 3 things you're going to need to do clouds. You're going to need water, right? We're going to need some white paint, which it doesn't matter what kind of acrylic paint you use. You can get it anywhere. It's really cheap. And it's non-toxic. So if we're spraying aerosols trying to do clouds, we don't want to be breathing all that stuff in. So very user-friendly products. And then just a regular sponge. Nothing special, not those ones you get out in the ocean there or anything like that. There's just regular sponge. You can get a pack of these at the dollar store, really cheap. So what you want to do is you take that sponge and you just put it in the water and let it start absorbing some water. And then, okay, so 4 things. You need plates. So I wasn't ready for the live demonstration, but I'm doing the best I can. So once your sponge starts to absorb water, you just take a little bit of this paint. And what we want to do is we don't want to, I got to soften the acrylic on these a little bit. They've been used a few times. So the first step in this process of getting the clouds is we want to get those horizon clouds and the wispy ones. You know, I'm not a cloud expert, so what are those wispy ones called? I have no idea. I just call them the wispy ones. There we go. Thank you. So again, you don't want this thing to be dripping wet. You don't want to wipe this across your background and have it run, although acrylic's pretty easy to work with when it's wet, and you can reactivate it again before it fully cures. So real easy, you just come across the bottom of your backdrop and you start putting these clouds in. And you can wisp them up. Get a little more. And this is what I'm talking about, what we don't want is this run. That's too much water, and that's not how you want that to work. And all we're doing here is just getting this base down along the horizon and then just showing some airflow of how those clouds look.
That looks kind of Bob Ross.
You know, I get that a lot. But again, when you watch Bob Ross, you're like, my God, that looks so easy. And it's really not that hard. Wait till you see if I have time to show you how to do the trees. It's all just stippling the trees in. It's extremely easy. But, you know, you can keep manipulating the acrylic just like so, right? And then there's just kind of the background wispy clouds. And so once those are dry, it's pretty much almost dry now, we can start doing what I call the faraway clouds. So as you look at the clouds out in the sky, except for the ones right above you, if they're off on the horizon, the ones off on the horizon are small, which is what you want to do when you're doing a model railroad. If you only got 2 feet to work with, you want to add that depth. So all you do at that point is you take your sponge and you fold it in half, and then you just dip the corners in, and you can either hold it this way or this way, it doesn't matter. And you just come in and start putting those far away clouds in. And there's really no technique to it. You just don't want to try to duplicate the same, you know, you want to turn your hand as you do this, and you want to make them kind of far away and faded. And they're going to be a little closer together once you get down on the horizon, of course. And these are the ones that are going to show through your trees. So it's nice when you're looking at your forest and you can see a little break in the trees and there's clouds and blue sky back there. It really gives a really nice effect. And I try to keep them, like I said, as random as you can. You don't want to go full strength white. You want them to kind of be faded off in the background. That. Should I talk like Bob Ross did too? Happy little clouds, right? Yeah. Yeah. Sorry if I'm in the way. I was trying to.
What scale are you using?
There's no scale to clouds. Although these would be good friend scale or far away HL, right? So just along the bottom, you know, and there's kind of your distant clouds off in the background, right? And then if you want it, you know, you can play with it. And if you wanted something a little more brighter in the background, just add a couple like where the sun might be hitting it. And again, we're showing wind direction and we're showing sun direction. So you don't want to, when you start doing your clouds, you don't want to flip and start doing the sharp edges on one side and then the sharp edges on the other. because it's not going to actually kind of probably look right. And the other thing too is when we get up in the bigger clouds at the top, you don't want to make them overly too big. You want to kind of keep things at a distance, just like the forced perspective that was talked about earlier. We'll kind of do the same thing with clouds. So once we get those bottom clouds in there, then we can come in and, again, we don't want to polka dot it. You know, the mind always wants you to do everything symmetrical, right? But we want to keep this as not symmetrical as possible, so it looks more realistic, just like in the real world. So we come up here and we start putting these a little brighter clouds in, because they're going to be closer to the eye. And you notice I haven't added any water to my brush yet. It's damp, but not dripping wet, you know. And then we just come in here and put some more happy clouds in. Like that. Does anybody see gray in that? Does it kind of fool you to see a little bit of gray in that? Yeah. And then once we get our base coat clouds, and then if you want to highlight some of the tops where the sun's really hitting them, you just have to pick which direction your sun's coming from. Since I'm right-handed, it seems to always be on the left. So you can come in and add some more, you know, brighter tops to these with a little heavier paint. And that kind of highlights, gives you an idea of which way the sun's coming from. And again, if you stand back and you look at this, and then that's where you can really see it starts to blend together. And it's starting to look like a blue sky. And the nice thing about these is they photograph extremely well, like extremely well. I was really surprised because the way I proof a lot of the stuff I do, whether it's scenery or painting clouds or doing anything on my layout, I take a lot of photographs after I'm done. And that way I can I actually look and learn and see if there's anything I can change. And the clouds are no different. And of course, it's all just what looks good to you, right? And so we can put one more right over there in the corner, over here. And it all comes down to just practice. You got to practice, practice. I wouldn't say go ahead and try this on your permanent layout right out of the gate. I would suggest getting it. You can buy small pieces of masonite now, cut them up yourself, and practice, because that's what I did until I finally got a technique where I was comfortable enough to actually do it on my permanent layout. Although you can, and then just paint it blue if you don't like it and start over. You know, it's really that easy. And that's clouds. Put a mountain in there if you wanted to, you know. So that's how I do my clouds, those four things. And it's really, and it goes quick. You could have a huge layout and 12 foot of sky that's just blue, and you could get through this. It took me 15 minutes to do 4 feet. And it dries quick because it's acrylic paint. So you can go to the next step quickly. So, and even maybe up here where there's nothing, it's just way off in the background. Just some really faded ones back here.
Is that a happy cloud?
Can do a happy. See, that was a happy cloud, right? We'll just go ahead and blend that one in. Did you guys see that? Just like that. Just like that. There. And that's the clouds.
Wow. Yeah, that's good. What are the rest of these products that you brought?
So I have enough time, I think,
Yes.
according to Tom. So I'll show you how I do my background trees and then the trees in front of that. So can we go back to one more photo of, and I'll show the trees. So here's a good example right here. So I just showed you how I do the clouds. Well, those do look pretty good. I like that. So once the clouds are done, and then you can put your trees right in front of this if you wanted to. That's entirely up to you. But for me, I decided to actually paint trees onto the backdrop. And, and again, it goes back to the Bob Ross. He makes it look easy because it is easy. It's really, and I'm going to show you how easy it is. The biggest thing you want to make sure you do when you do it this way is you want to match the background paint to whatever trees you're using. So otherwise it's going to look, if you use a really dark green and then you put some lighter green trees in front, the contrast there is going to be, it's not going to catch the eye in a good way. So I have a few different tree colors that I use. And again, the cheap acrylic paints, these go $1.19 a piece probably. So you can get a lot of trees done for pretty cheap. This is an olive green, which I like for my background trees. I used a lot of the Woodland Scenics products when they used to come before they were, if you bought Woodland Scenics tree armatures lately, or they come in a plastic bag now, they changed the formula. So you don't get a lot of nice trees out of those anymore, unfortunately. But when I started doing this back in like 2015, when you open that thing up, they went everywhere because they weren't wrapped in plastic yet. But you got some beautiful trees out of that box, that plastic box that I'm talking about with, with all those tree armatures. Now you can either use those or you can just make your own trees using the Scenic Express stuff. I've been learning how to actually build my own pine trees and stuff now. So just make sure you match the color to whatever your trees are going to be. Otherwise, you might have a big contrast of interest there. So dark color for the back, and then any kind of lighter color in the middle, which we could use maybe this one. So there's two different colors to the background, and then on your palette, you just mix these together to get different leaf colors. And then the lighter one will highlight the sun. And then you could even go as far as adding a little yellow in there, a little bit of white in there, depending on what kind of trees you're trying to produce in the background. So I will show you real quick. Again, paint, plate, brush, and that's really all you need to do trees. So the way I like to do this is my darkest color will be on the base, which will be this one. Another little side note, when you try to shake these, they don't really mix well. After a while, they'll separate. So I took these 5/16 little stainless steel nuts, and you drop one of these little nuts inside of this, and then you can mix them really good. So they work good, like you can hear it in there. Because otherwise, sometimes they separate, there's nothing in there to mix it, so. All right, so we have dark green on one plate, and then what I'll do is I'll add a couple more colors on another palette. So this is like a medium green, and then we'll do a little bit of a lighter green on there. The most color you're going to use will be the dark, and then I went with a little lighter green and then a really light highlight green. So this doesn't get wet. Don't have to get this wet. Just a nice, dry, soft brush. This is a 2-inch. Nothing special. Doesn't have to be, don't get the cheapest one, but you don't need the highest one either. Just something that's soft that will do this extremely well. And that's called stippling. And that's all you really do to do trees. I don't try to do the trunks because they're behind my trees that I'm going to put there. So you don't even need to do that whole, it doesn't have to be an artist quality tree. It just has to be something that you can see through the trees, and it makes the forest look denser than what it actually is. So you just take some of this paint, and let's see, we'll just start. So along the bottom, we want to make sure that you can even just brush that on if you want to, but you want the bottoms to be pretty dense. I'm going to keep these along the bottom, the base down here. And if your layout's here and there's a space, you want to make sure you get right down in that if there's any seam there. And then I'm going to leave a little space like that. Okay, we get the idea with that. So now we want to start shaping these trees, the ones in the background. So this is what right along the layout, and then what we do up here is we just start putting these trees in. And you want to make sure you keep moving your brush around. You don't want every tree to do this angle or this angle. You want to kind of keep them. And again, we're not trying to produce a perfect painted tree. We just want something that represents a tree back there. You can kind of see the clouds coming through a little bit.
I really like those clouds, though. You just covered them.
Yeah, but that's okay. That's okay. But you can see through the trees, right? And so once you get this dark color in, I'll just pull a little bit of the lighter color green and just start mixing a palette off to the side. That gives you a nice custom different colors to start playing with. And then you start adding that color in. Give you some leaf structure, right, in there. Again, nothing crazy. Just kind of highlighting some of the leaves.
Like on everywhere, on the edges.
Yeah, I mean, this is just, again, you want to, since my sunlight's going this way, I'm going to try to highlight the trees only on the left side, right? And again, the ones closer to the eye will be more vibrant than the ones way off in the distance. And then these, you can take the real light color and then just start adding, like up here at the tops, just kind of highlight those up in there. And if you wanted to do some grass along the bottom, you could actually go like this and add a little bit of grasses down there. Kind of looks like trees. And this is mostly like pine trees. You could try different techniques to, try to do all kinds of different trees. And then if you really wanted to highlight them, you could throw just a very little bit of white on the tops. I wouldn't go straight white because nothing in the real world is straight like white. And those, you could always add flowers along the bottom on the grass down here that I just did. And that's would be the progression. So clouds, dark along the bottom, and then start progressing up until you get the final result, which is kind of like over here. And if you add some yellow paint, you could add some yellow flowers along the grasses there or anything like that. And that's it. It's really not that hard. Does anybody have any questions? None?
Eric, I've got a quick one.
Yes.
So you would take, for instance, that piece and put it right on the back edge of your layout, and then put some real, say, your built trees in front of that to give it that.
Yeah, if we could bring up another photo.
Perception.
Yes. Yep, I'll explain that. I'll bring up another photo. Let's see what else we got up there. Okay, well, yeah, go back. So this is the club down in Shirley, Mass. I don't know if anybody's ever been down there, the National Valley Railroad Association. They recruited me to do their clouds for their layout and the background trees. So this is a good example of that. So I don't know if any of you have ever been down to Shirley, Mass for their layout. Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful layout, yeah. All those clouds there are mine now that they asked me to do. And then these are the background trees here, which I just painted over here. And then you can see how they put their trees right into the front. They're doing kind of a fall foliage look. Is there another slide? This is another same shot from Shirley, Mass. Those are the clouds that I just produced. And then again, you can see the painted background trees where there's a gap in the foreground trees. And that's how they do it. And there's my layout. Yeah, so there's West Chicago Yard. Sorry about the shadows. We all fight with that. But again, there's some more clouds in the background. This is downtown Rochelle. I have no idea where this. No, I'm just kidding. It's up on the upper level. This is also the old Chicago Northwestern signal bridges that are no longer there. They've taken them down and put up the more modern cantilever stuff. But again, the clouds. These are pretty faded. I started doing clouds, my goodness, back, I think it was 2015 when I first started learning how to do this. And I hadn't seen anybody else do it yet. So that's why I got a YouTube channel out there, which I don't do anymore, unfortunately. I've been asked why. It's all about time. You know, there's not enough time in the day. We've all heard that. But I will get back to my YouTube videos hopefully someday. It's the UPRR Geneva sub in HO scale. You'll see my picture up there with my dog Henry. There's quite a few videos. The video of the presentation that I was going to show today is on there, and also the same thing with the trees. So you can always go there and look at these two presentations and anything else that I might have posted, and hopefully someday I can get back there and do some more.
Was that the train park in the previous picture?
Which one?
Another one.
The railroad park?
Yeah.
Yes, I have. So Rochelle Railroad Park is 10.5 feet on my layout at my house. So yeah, I modeled that. You know, and a little background story about my railroad. I used to live in Milford, New Hampshire, 3rd floor apartment, and I was looking for a house or a condo, and I said, well, I'm going to start building my dream layout, which was the section of Rochelle. That was 9.5 feet by 2.5 feet wide, and I mounted that to my living room, 3rd floor apartment, pulled the couch away from the wall, and started building this Rochelle Railroad Park. I moved into my condo April of 2012 after looking at several different places. And when I walked into the basement, you know, when you go to buy a home or a new place to live, if you can't see yourself in there and your stuff, then you don't want it. As soon as I walked into the basement, I said, this is it. This is the space I need. You know, it wasn't a finished basement by any means, but it was the space I needed to do what I wanted to do. So long story short, that when I bought my condo, Rochelle Railroad Park was about the size of this table, only a little not so narrow. I mean, a little narrower. It had to go at an angle through the basement window with about this much room on each side to spare, and it got in. And then the rest of my layout, if any of you have been to my house, everything was built around that 9.5 foot section. So there's a helix in the corner, the upper level. I model all the way from West Chicago Yard all the way to Clinton, Iowa. And I do have it's the 9-foot replica of the swing bridge that goes from Illinois into Iowa. Yeah. So.
Eric, can you tell us your YouTube channel again?
Yeah, it's UPRR Geneva sub. So Union Pacific Railroad, UPRR Geneva sub in HO scale.
What year did you do?
I am early 2000s, about 2000, 2005. Yeah, on a beautiful day. Never rains on my layout.
It's a really
So,
nice cloud.
thank you. I'm glad you liked it.